Hi, Katie.
Hey, Jen.
How are you?
Good. Did you survive last night's storm?
I did. Just some flooding in the basement, but we got our pumps going.
That's good.
Yeah. How about you?
We did okay. Like I woke up, I was up late because Paul was out at a concert and Dave was getting them. And then my sister started texting pictures from New Jersey where they were getting like 15 inches of rain. And she was digging a trench in her backyard and bailing her sump. So I was like, okay, maybe I should go down and check. And when I went down at like midnight, the basement was dry. But then of course at like 3 a.m, I woke up. I'm like, I gotta check it again. But amazingly, it didn't get too bad. We're on ledge, so it has literally no place to go.
Right. We have selling Woody today when he came by. We have so much groundwater. And we've Bound Brook Stream comes all the way down, but not near me. So when I went up down Captain Pierce, the people who were really high up next to the little tiny brook, the brook was all the way to the top and under their cars.
Wow.
So that was nuts.
Yeah. Has anybody heard if there was a rain total that we got last night? I mean, it was coming down.
I had 4 inches in my little rain measure on my driveway.
There we go.
God.
I'm
I
sorry.
did see in the
Because
globe.
I had emptied it before, so that's a true 4 inches.
You
Wow.
know, I was looking, I think the Globe had a small article that as of last night or today, we've had more rain than we got all last year. And here we are only the 1st or 2nd of, it's the 2nd of August, of July, September. Where
Yeah.
were I? Changed my calendar.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I have
still,
some plants that are like literally rotting from the
Yeah.
bottom up. It's
My
pretty-
my grasses have taken over. They're the biggest they've ever been. And I don't like, they're so huge. I can't get up my back stairs.
All right. Well, we have a quite
we have a
the good
quorum. Who are we
quorum.
missing? We're missing.
We've got Cassie, who I did hear from. So I expect that she will show. And I did not hear from either Paul or from Jack. I am going to ping those two because this will be the 3rd meeting that in Paul's case, he's missed more than that. But with Jack, I think it's been 3 meetings. And so at this point, you got to jump back in. Otherwise, you're going to get too far behind. So I'll reach out to them unless somebody else wants to be the nudge. Anybody else volunteering?
Oh, Katie,
No.
you're
Okay.
right for it. And I'd hate to spoil your fun.
Exactly. All right. So with that, let's call to order the zoning bylaw working group of September 2nd at 2 p.m. Roll call, present Katie Dugan.
Richard, a guy present.
Tom Callahan,
Present, Peter Pescatori.
All right.
John
Jen
Hallen, present.
and Jen Oram. Okay.
I'm here. I don't know if I should say I'm present because I'm ad hoc. I don't know.
I keep you guys in the minutes. So yeah.
All right.
You're ex officio and you're present.
All right.
Yeah.
You will be counted.
You're ad hocly present.
Exactly. So next item of business is approval of 2 sets of minutes, one from July 14th, 2021, and the second from August 4th, 2021. If I could get, I make a motion to approve those 2 sets of minutes. Can I get a second?
Second,
All in, Jack, we're doing a approval of 2 sets of minutes from July 14th and August 4th. I don't think you were at the meeting, so and we've got a quorum, so you don't need to vote on this.
All right,
Roll
proceed.
call.
I'm fine.
Roll call vote. I, Katie Dugan.
I Tom Callahan.
hi, Woody Chidick.
Hi, Pete Pescatori.
Great.
Hi, Jack Creighton.
Awesome. Okay, so we made it through the procedural stuff. There were kind of two things I wanted to do up front just to kind of ground us. I know it's the Thursday before Labor Day weekend, and I appreciate everybody jumping in. I think it's a good time for us to kind of use this meeting to regroup and reset so that we know exactly what we want to tackle in September, so we hit the ground running. Hi, Cassie.
Hi guys, sorry, I said to be promoted. I went in through the link in your agenda.
No worries at all. So two things I want to do. One is I wanted to share, Jack, with your permission, it's a draft of some of the goals that the select board has set for itself. I don't think you've finished discussing them, so it's obviously not finalized, but I think it's helpful for the zoning bylaw working group just to kind of understand where the select board is at as you guys kind of think about fiscal 2022. So with that, I'll share what I got from Chris a while back, and I know it's not final, and I'd love to have you, Jen, if you can enable me to share a screen. Oops, Jen's gone.
You should be all set.
Okay, thanks. All right. Get myself organized here. Okay. All right. So reduce the font on this a little bit. Get it all on one screen. There we go. Sorry. So the three goals, and Jack, if you want to present them, that's fine.
No, you go right ahead.
Okay. I've heard some of these conversations. So three goals. First is relative to, and again, these are select board goals, so they're overarching on a number of different areas. Goal number one is around communication, having a more comprehensive communication structure for inbound communication, support to residents, and then outbound communication to residents and the broader community. So that's goal number one. And I honestly, I'm not sure that, I think it will apply to the zoning bylaw working group once we have things that we want to say to the community. Having a structure that we can leverage as a committee instead of having to create our own infrastructure for communications is going to be super helpful. I know that when we made our presentation for master plan implementation, we had the same comment, which is it feels often as a committee that we have to, we get done with our normal day job, and then we have a second job of writing up communications and doing the communication itself. And so having a structure and having some support from the town side so that we could leverage an infrastructure and blast it out so that residents are aware of what master plan is working on or zoning bylaw working group is working on, it would be helpful. So that's goal number one. Goal number two directly relates to us. And I thought it was interesting and very good that the select board has decided that land use issues facing the community, including comprehensive zoning bylaw revision, village revitalization, and harbor plan support, rose to the level of a goal. And I think in some cases, this some of this rises to the level 2 years in a row. So I like that. Jack, I don't know if there's anything else to add there in terms of discussion.
No, I think it's very clear. The the town leadership or the select board is looking to do these types of things, and but in my opinion anyway, we should lean very heavily upon the various working groups, because we can't expect people to do all the work that's involved if the select board does not support them.
Great. And again, I think the idea is that your committee can help elevate and promote the conversations and the work that we're doing at the zoning bylaw working group, and that we'll have to do with the planning And as we get to
Thank
that
you.
critical piece of consensus building, I think the select board is going to be particularly helpful in helping us have that dialogue with the community about why this comprehensive zoning bylaw reform is needed.
We also hear very directly and stridently from people who are affected. And also on that, I think it's important that we continue to reach out to the community. I mean, we in our little zoning thing here, to make sure that the community is represented. Those people who have parochial issues that they're pushing are carrying for themselves very well. One of the things we want to be very receptive to is to the citizens at large.
Yep. And making sure they're aware of it and getting their input into the process.
That's correct.
And then the last goal relates to public facilities, capital planning. And this is really, I think, something that we've all seen sort of coming to a head of town hall versus some of the other needs in town, whether it's school facility related or whether it's longer term related to public safety or even the harbor master facility. So getting that lined up so that we have, again, public consensus around the priorities and how we're going to fund those priorities versus having a dynamic where we're going to have town versus school or town hall versus public safety building. I think that is kind of the overarching goal there, correct? So those are overall select board goals. And I wanted to frame it so that everybody is aware of what was going on and the fact that we had support from the select board, which I think is fantastic, and we'll be able to leverage that.
We hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I be calling you Pollyanna.
Yeah. Hey, Peter. Sorry.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For Jack, actually. Jack, last year there were 4 goals. And the one that I'm particularly interested in is the Youth Recreation Center. I didn't see it in the carry forward in this year's goals, and I'm not aware that anything has happened on that. Can you comment on that?
Boy, I'll tell you, I echo your concern. I think it's an ongoing concern. I feel very, very strongly that it's just been left at the wayside. I've been trying to find
It's
out.
not in this year's goals, so I guess it has been abandoned.
Well,
You might say.
not by me. And I continue to stridently do it, but I'm glad that you brought that up because it is a disturbing omission. And
Okay.
I'm not happy.
Peter, I did see something come out. It probably is not related to the broader teen or youth center, but they did actually reopen the existing one. So that is a little bit of good news in all of this.
But the garage?
Yeah. Yep. There was a note that came out to everybody who subscribes to the rec department. And I'll dig it out of my email and send it to you, Peter, just so you have it. But
Send it to me as well, because I did
Yeah,
not.
I didn't.
I saw something about the library.
I didn't see that, and
I got that too, Katie.
yep.
yeah, I'd like to understand what that really means. Is there staff assigned? Are there programs planned? I mean, or is it just the door is open?
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't read it that quickly, but my sense was, hallelujah, the door is open at least, and I didn't look into the program. So good questions on that
Yeah.
front. But
I'll
send
make
it-
sure. Yeah, I think it was Safe Harbor that's utilizing it for the,
Yeah, Safe Harbor is the sponsor and is the driving force
yes, I believe that
Fine.
they're using it.
behind that for a lot of reasons. And
Right. I was excited to see when I got that email, so we'll make sure.
Yeah, one of the things that Chris Senior had said, that they didn't have the staffing, so we needed the full-time assistant rec director who the select board recently approved the fund, him being hired. So presumably he's on there. So
Okay.
that was
So there's
representative the
there's some
last.
staff anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so maybe some programs will follow.
Yes. All right. So I'll circulate that and that will let you guys follow up directly on that dangling Chad, as it were, from last year's fiscal goals.
I would enjoy doing that.
All right, so the next thing I want to do is kind of focus it down to our working group. Again, this is how my brain works. And so this is a draft for discussion with the group. My thought process behind this was we've got a couple streams of work that are going to be important to get off the ground running in September after Labor Day. And then there's some streams of work that we have to keep on ongoing. So my thought was, let's get them all lined up, talk about what's involved in each of those streams of work, and then assign some people to get the job done. So again, if this doesn't resonate with people in terms of priorities or how they wanted to be assigned, that is all open for discussion. Share my screen again. It's weird, Jen. It's not coming up.
It did it again. Let me look. I think it must be a new, it says all panelists.
I don't know. Hold on. It's
Let me
not-
look. I can look. So I did download everything.
Here, let me try again. It's not recognizing the document. Oh, I got it now. Okay,
Okay.
sorry. It's glitchy. All right, let me get this centered. There were kind of three main streams of work, and then I had kind of a fourth, which is an other, which honestly, the timeline is future. So I think we can just talk about what it is so that people are aware of it, but I'm not worried about necessarily tasking against it right now. The three major streams of work that I saw were moving forward with the handful of special town meeting articles that we have been discussing, and Tom, Woody, and I have a proposal around how to rescope that after the planning board discussions earlier this month on August 11th. There are also some public hearings associated with two sets of regulations that we've talked about over the summer, one related to common driveways and the second related to non-subdivision private ways. So that's one set of work, and the timeline on that is really October and November. I believe that the special town meeting is set for December 13th. Is that correct? Does that sound right, Jen?
Yes, that's
Okay.
it.
Yes.
Yep. So backing up from that, the warrant has to be mailed no later than November 29th, which means that really all of your approvals kind of have to be done, before Thanksgiving, latest that, Tuesday, before Thanksgiving. So most of the approvals from planning board and, planning board is going to come early in October, but then you've got advisory and select board in November. So again, timeline really tight on October and November. The second stream of work is that at least I had in my mind was around working to get a consultant, as we've been talking about, for the broader comprehensive redraft and reorganization on board to help with the public forums and the consensus building. We have a grant funding that we've got requested for that, which we'll know about October 1st. We also, to support that, have made a request to the select board and the town manager for additional funding as part of the special town meeting. But to really get that done, we would have to start an RFP process that would sort of segue into the funding coming available in the November, December timeframe. So again, that's a process to identify the RFP in terms of exactly what the scope is, and then go through the process with Michelle Leary, and at the tail end of that, dovetail it in with funding and an interview process by this working group around what consultant we want to work with. And then the last stream of work is what we've been doing and driving for overall in many ways is the comprehensive redraft and reorganization. And again, the timeline on that is this year to 2022, when we can get this all wrapped up, hopefully. So those are the three major streams of work. I'll stop here and ask whether I got it right, whether this makes sense. Are there other streams of work that we need to be focused on?
I think you got it, Katie.
Okay. So anybody else? Okay. In terms of, divide and conquer on this, I throw this out here as a straw man, but I was hoping that we could sign up Woody and Tom to really help us drive forward the special town meeting articles and public hearing regulations and help us keep on task there. And then I was hoping, Cassie, that I could sign you up with me to kind of work the RFP process in terms of identifying that consultant that we could work with from a public forum and a consensus building perspective. And then we're all on point, in many different ways. Cassie, you on residential, Woody, you on housing, Peter, you on harbor, and Tom, you as kind of the master coordinator in terms of the reorganization and the master draft on this. So that was the proposal. Do people feel comfortable with those assignments?
Yeah, I got one question. What does SSL mean?
Where's the SSL?
We're on
Number
September.
one column.
Oh, I'm sorry, single lot exemption, sorry.
Okay, so SLE, let's say.
Sorry.
I just didn't know what SSL was.
Special
I don't know.
code.
Yeah, sorry. Single
Yeah,
lot.
no, okay, I got that. Okay.
Yeah, no, okay. So just kind of diving into it a little bit, the next layer of details. So I do want to spend a chunk of time after we just finish off this discussion about streams of work and who's tackling what in terms of that. I'm going through the next draft of the special town meeting warrant articles and the rules and regulations. But there was one piece of feedback that came up from the planning board, which I want to raise with the group right now. And that is, and it came directly from Clark. And I don't know if we've heard it from anybody else, Woody and Tom, but we certainly heard it from Clark, questioning whether, and it came up in the context of, you guys are biting off too much for the fall in terms of special town meeting. And also in the same vein, it's not typical for us to do zoning related changes in the fall as part of a special town meeting. And in Tom's response to it and my response to it at the August planning board meeting was that we've got a lot of work ahead of us as it relates to zoning. So we're going to need to get in the rhythm of doing this at special town meeting and annual town meeting. And the ones that we had chosen, the 6 that we had chosen, we felt strongly that there was a rationale for doing them now in the fall. Like there was an urgency that we wanted to get them done. And the reason that moratorium got raised was, well, instead of rushing to get this done in the fall, could you put in place a moratorium on a specific issue or a specific district and accomplish the same and give yourself a little bit more time to get the language right and get the public buy-in instead of trying to get it all done in advance of something you're worried about happening in town. So moratorium is not something that we've talked about as a group, but it did come up from the planning board and it really piqued, I think, Tom and my interest in terms of maybe it's another tool in our toolkit as we're trying to slow things down and give ourselves the space to get to the comprehensive redraft. Could we tactically put in, 1 or 2 moratoriums, perhaps one related to new homes, new construction, and perhaps one related to the harbor that could slow things down and give us the time to analyze. So I'll stop there and I'm sure there's a lot of questions about moratoriums.
Well, could I,
Yeah,
I would suggest the minute the idea of a moratorium gets out there, you supercharge everybody who's thinking of doing anything and they rush to file their permit. So we need to be aware. As little as I can understand about moratoriums, and this is where we need legal counsel
yep,
to weigh in sooner rather than later, is that you're allowed to do some more moratoriums and not others. So
Yep.
we need some practical legal, guidance on that. But as far as if we're going to do something like that, this is probably something that should rise to the top of what we need, because there is a time element. If we're going to do it, you need to do it, and you need to do it quickly, because otherwise it's counterproductive, because you force everybody to do every possible thing to beat the moratorium.
yep.
Jack, I've got a question, or Katie, from a moratorium standpoint. Does that require a town meeting vote? In which case, your desire to kind of keep this under wraps for a while is going to go away? Or is this an administrative action that the select board could take at some earlier date? That I don't know. Did anybody know?
I'm
I do know-
not a lawyer, but I would think suspending the bylaws, the effective bylaws would be a town meeting vote.
Yeah, so I did circulate, so in everybody's packet, there is a document that is written in 1986, but still holds true today. And it was put out by the state's Office of Communities and Development. And at the back of it, and again, I agree with you completely, Jack, that number one on my list is to get us town council, specifically Carolyn Murray, back to this group to educate us on building moratoriums. But in that one state document that I could pull, it said, a building moratorium should be adopted as an amendment to the local zoning bylaw or ordinance in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 40A, the Zoning Act. So I took that as
Town
you
meeting.
would need to have a special town meeting warrant that.
We did that for marijuana when we first had to deal with the issue. We put a moratorium.
Right,
Yeah.
but it was town meeting that did it.
Yeah, no, I think it does need a town meeting vote.
Yeah. So it goes to
But-
town meeting, so you're not gonna, this isn't a sneak, but I think your point, Jack, was more about speed. If you're talking about it, either do it or don't, but don't wait a year to put in place a building moratorium, because whatever you were talking about is gonna get flushed out, so.
Well, 3 months strikes me even as a long time. I mean, we have to live with it, but December 13th is kind of around the corner from a practical standpoint. So we just have to be aware of the fact that
Yep,
I think Jack is right in predicting that there will be some sort of rush. We don't have to over publicize this, but a good developer is going to have his or her ears to the ground.
yep.
But who would be the sponsor? Would the bylaw group or would the planning group be the sponsor for a moratorium?
I think it would sort of follow what we've been doing, which is we make the recommendation to the planning board, and the planning board does, like they always do, the public hearings under the 40A process.
Right.
And so it would roll like a special town meeting article, but it would be a unique one. And the other thing that this document said is that a building moratorium should be directed at the type of development needing control and should not prohibit all uses within a zoning district. So it needs to be specific, and it needs to address a type of development that needs control. The third thing that was said was that the enactment of the building moratorium should be for the purpose of allowing a municipality an opportunity to study the effects of the probable future development. So it can't be a 10-year moratorium. And he goes on to sort of cite, case law that I haven't spent a lot of time on, but from what I can tell, it sounds like 2 years is not an unreasonable amount. So it's 2 years or less is the length of the moratorium. And again, I'm sure there's nuances in terms of the case law that are out there. He does go to say the length of the building moratorium must be reasonably related to the amount of time necessary to study the growth problems and implement the recommendations. The other thing that he mentioned is that, though a community is not obliged to conduct studies before the enactment of a moratorium, there should be evidence of good faith effort by the community that a new comprehensive plan or study is the offering. So I think we're uniquely positioned because we've already put in place a zoning bylaw working group. We have a master plan. We have filed for a state grant to help us with a comprehensive redraft and reorganization. So we've kind of set up our evidence to say that we're working on that bigger study. Now we'd like to put in place a very specific building moratorium to address either this one or two issues for this amount of time. And we've built a little bit of the framework as we've been going about our work these last 12 months. So my proposal, if people are on board with it, is that I reach out to Chris Senior and to Lauren Lind and get us access to our new land use counsel, Carolyn Murray at KP Law, and have her come. I was actually trying to target 2 weeks from now, sometime the week of the 13th. I was thinking either the 15th or 16th to try and get her in with a very specific agenda of educating us around building moratoriums.
Okay, I know we did speak with her briefly about that, so it's on her radar. So I think reaching out for 2 weeks certainly wouldn't be the first contact. So I think she knows this is coming.
Okay. All right. People have been whispering, which is great. It's sort of a blessing and a curse in a small town like Cohasset.
Well, actually, it happened at her orientation or session with John, myself, Amy, and Lauren.
This past Monday. When
Yeah.
she was
So,
meeting with the
I mean, it
permitting
was
board.
part of, here's what's coming down the pike.
Okay. So Peter, Tom, Jack, are you guys comfortable with that strategy?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'll put those wheels in motion and stay tuned around Carolyn. I think in my mind, if we're going to do this, it obviously has to be specific and it has to be time bounded. It just can't be everything. But the two issues that kind of rise to my mind are one, the harbor, and then second, potentially new homes, new construction, until we get to a revised table of area regulations.
But at the harbor, what specifically? Is it the height issue that we're wrestling with? What's going to be the specific or the mixed use?
Both.
So those are the two critical
Both.
things.
Yeah, both.
I think we have kind of an interesting moment here. If you put let's say a freeze on changes to waterfront business and Harbor Village, the overlay district, and put a moratorium on new buildings in those two districts, it will have the effect of flushing out those that want to make changes so that we know what is coming down the pike, and the community and our working group and the planning board can be proactive in rewriting the bylaws to allow or not allow what we'd like to see happen at the harbor. I guess that was the hope, Peter, is that we could kind of freeze and then also at the same time flush out what was going to happen so that we could specifically address it. I mean, right, yes, we know we want to do a height maximum, but we're also sort of guessing at what's going to happen from a development perspective. And by putting in place a moratorium, you're going to flush out that conversation.
Yeah, okay.
And it takes away the risk that we're guessing right or wrong.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, the more I thought about it, I felt like it almost puts that flushing out as an advantage, because it makes people have to come forward to ensure that, if they want something, they're transparent about what they're looking to do. And then the town has the luxury of saying yes or no as we go about revising the zoning bylaws, instead of us guessing up front and potentially guessing wrong.
Yeah, I'm in favor of a moratorium, but what about the individual or group? And I'll pick on the harbor because I think it's a great example, where they may not be quite ready to present or seek some sort of relief, be it zoning or other. And, they may be 3 months or 6 months away from that. They would be swept up in a moratorium, and possibly a year and a half, 2 years goes by before they could do anything with pieces of property.
That would be the effect, yeah.
Would be the effect. Tom?
Yeah, but if they're not ready now, the moratorium isn't hurting them. If there's something they want to advance that we can agree on, we can agree to have an article that terminates the moratorium ahead of time. The alternative is we do nothing and we react to, if they are ready to go forward with something and they want to change the zoning and extend the overlay to the rest of the harbor, to their property, then we're in a reaction mode and having to defeat that at town meeting. I'd rather deal with the impacts of a moratorium, the impact of a moratorium on them, than rather us being in a defensive, us meaning the town being in a defensive position.
I think we ought to put the question of raised as part of Carolyn Murray's discussion about moratorium at this moment.
Yeah, certainly. But it comes up, the overlay district comes up all the time. And I'm wondering if that wouldn't be the primary reason for the moratorium.
I think you're right. I don't have a good crystallized way to market this yet, Peter, which is I'm hoping that by getting smart and continuing this conversation with the group, we'll be able to articulate.
Expansion of the overlay district is a hot button. So
it's probably the only button, because it's the only way they get to mixed use, and it's
exactly.
and it also deals with the height. So
exactly,
yeah, your point is well taken. That's what's going to be in front of us. Either somebody's going to seek to expand that overlay, or we're going to do it, but with maybe adjustments to height, adjustments to uses, whatever else we decide. But that's it. I don't think there's anything else in the harbor at the moment that's pressing or a likely development that isn't allowed already.
I think it's very important that we flush out what people are planning to do.
Mhm.
So I think, I agree with Tom and Woody. We need to get that flushing out. We need to get this process. But I go back to, we need legal counsel to know
All right, well,
what
then,
we can and cannot do.
and
So two things.
And with respect to fleshing out the current owner, we discussed this the other day, and I'm all for it, but I understand he's the kind of guy that may not care about cooperating with us and may say, screw you, I'll appeal you to death.
Well, that takes a while. That takes time too.
Yeah, well, no, I know that, but I'm perfectly, I think we should, and I also suggested some public forums like you're doing for the corridor, the Elm Street corridor.
Yeah. So in terms of next steps, if everyone can read the moratorium memo that was included in the packet, it'll give you a better, it's only like 5 pages or 6 pages, so it's not super hard, and you can skip over the case law pieces if you want to.
Okay. I guess I didn't see the, maybe I missed the packet. Was that attached to the agenda email?
I sent it out on Monday, but I'm happy to.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it at all.
No, that's okay. I'm happy to send out the build. I'll keep a little list of things that I'll send out to the groups as top of inbox, so you guys don't have to go digging for it. So I'll resend out this building moratorium memo. If everybody can read that and everybody can start making up a list of questions they have relative to building moratoriums. Once I get the date set with council, I will come back to everybody and ask for everybody's questions so we can kind of make it a productive session. So she sees in advance what people are thinking about and what people want answers to. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'll get that scheduled. The next thing that I wanted to just talk a little bit about was let's see, sorry, on the RFP process, just so everybody's aware, there was a meeting last Tuesday that was a training session for the ZBA and for the planning board. The topic was roles and responsibilities of those boards. And it happened that the person that was doing the training from Citizen Planning Training Collaborative is a consultant that works in the area of recodifications, comprehensive redrafts, and reorganizations. And, you know, what I suggested to Lauren is, like, if he could come in and give us a quick top things to do and top 10 things to not do as we approach this comprehensive redraft and reorganization, I think it'd be helpful if we can just pick his brain, especially as we head into picking a consultant that we'd like to work with for the public forums and consensus building. So with everybody's agreement, I'm going to see if we can schedule some time with this consultant. He's a former planner. He worked in Amherst. I forget some of the other communities that he's been in, but he's, you know, he does this as kind of his side hustle or his, you know, retirement practice. And I think leveraging his knowledge just to kind of prime our thinking before we go into the RFP process would be helpful. So is everybody comfortable with me arranging that and getting that on a future agenda?
Yeah, Katie, I would add Carolyn Murray as well, not in tandem, but separately. She purports or told John and I, among others, that she has written town bylaws before and certainly mentioned a few do's and don'ts, such as get rid of your regulations out of the bylaws and put them where they belong and so on and so forth. So I think it'd be useful to have two perspectives. I presume that they're 80–90% parallel.
Yep.
There may be just some interesting nuance.
Would people like to combine the building moratorium and the best practices conversation with Carolyn and have one single conversation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Be efficient.
Awesome. All right, then I will tee that up as a two-topic conversation.
One less meeting. I'm sorry.
Oh, Jack.
Yeah, we're only 41 minutes in and he's already.
Shame.
No. All right, thank you guys. So I'm not going to belabor this anymore, but if everybody's on board, I mean, these are sort of the three streams of work, and I think we use this to kind of guide ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, it's a good outline.
Mhm. Well done.
Thank you guys. Helps me feel calmer and more under control.
Oh,
Exactly.
sorry, I couldn't resist.
It's like, you know, how do you get centered? I'm like, I do PowerPoint and Word. That's how I center myself.
I was at Woodstock. By the way.
All right. So next up on the agenda is special town meeting warrant articles and the two sets of regulations, Tom. So this is really two different sets of public hearings, obviously one in October for the warrant articles, and then a different set of public hearings for the regulations, which would be teed up. I think Lauren's looking at September 22nd or October 6th. So which do you want to tackle first, Tom? Do you want me to bring up the regulations and we can walk through those, or do you want to walk through the articles again?
Well, I'd rather go through the regulations because I thought the text was set when I presented them to the planning board a couple of weeks ago. But so let's deal with changes so I can get those changes
Okay,
into the rest of the board for our meeting next Wednesday for them to have and look at.
okay.
Um,
Let me bring up.
And
comment.
everybody else knows that the 6 articles is going to go down to 3 plus the moratorium.
That is what the proposal is. So the proposal is, where am I? Tom, you probably got it right in front of you.
The proposal is to go ahead with the single lot exemption, the new definitions, and the ledge protection. Put off the harbor, put off the height definition, although I personally don't agree with that, but that's okay. As long as we implement that by policy, which I understand, John, we're doing, so.
And leave out the common driveway as well.
No, the common driveway is part of the 3 definition changes: frontage, street, and common driveway.
Yeah, I'll bring it up so that everybody can see it.
What did the planning board decide on for number of houses? Number of lots?
Oh, you mean in terms of the regulation changes?
You mean driveway? How many lots a driveway should
Yeah,
serve?
The-
Common
the-
driveway?
Did you end up with 2 or 3?
It's 3.
It's 3.
3, okay.
Katie can back me up. I did mention your 2 quite a bit.
I guess my,
They settled on 3, but they had no problems with the text of the 2 regulations that we're proposing. But for Clark, they really had no issues with the zoning articles, and Clark's was limited really to the height one and the harbor one.
and what I would say is, I'm worried on the common driveways. The one worrying comment, and again, this was from Clark, so it's one. It was only Clark, Amy, and Eric at the meeting. Paul Cleary was absent, and so was Paul Grady. So it was 4 members. Obviously Tom has 100%. For the 3 that we were looking to convince, Clark was the most outspoken. And on common driveways, and this was sort of a theme with him, he wants maximum flexibility. So he wasn't sold that there was an issue with the common driveway regulations overall. When we made the argument and we brought up some of the data that Woody had done for us last time, where we could see how, off the center we were in terms of the number of driveways, the length of driveways, the width of driveways, he wasn't convinced that that was a need for change.
A de facto development.
So I don't.
Well, not to be unfair to Clark, but he doesn't think there's a need for any change to the bylaw, period. 30 years be damned.
Wait, Katie,
Um,
sorry, Tom, did you guys reference certain precedents that we've talked about in addition to the data that Woody's put together?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we mentioned Ocean Ledge Drive. I think we mentioned Black Horse Lane.
And I had sent to them the 2 I'd written up 2 memos, which I sent to John Hallen on Diab and on Ocean Ledge, that were demonstrating this residential access issue. They're not common driveways, but it was all along this theme of residential access is an issue. I think part of it is, and this is one of the things that I think we just need to do more, is that before we jump into the bylaw language, we need to set the table. And as much as some people don't like it, providing that context in terms of like, here's what we know, here's why we're making this.
Yeah, I feel like we've done a pretty good job at that. I feel like we've done that, no?
Well,
All those case studies, all those precedents.
every time on the planning board when we're supposed to update our liaison assignments, I try to do it. It's at the end of our meetings, and they, again, get to 8:30 and 9 o'clock, and they all turn into pumpkins, with no disrespect, but their attention span goes down, and it's really difficult. So the last meeting was the first opportunity to do it in detail. 2 of the 5 weren't there, and I'm not so sure that, other than Clark, nobody really gets into the meat of these things. So I don't know if they're paying attention, they're bored, they think I'm a jerk. That came out, so that's fine. But it's hard to get them to engage and, and now we're worried, I've discussed this with Katie. I think we're worried too much about what one member thinks. Because he
But I'm worried
doesn't-
that the board, the planning board seems to have an amnesia, because we spent 2.5 hours with them in May laying out the case for why we wanted to make a series of changes
Yeah.
relative to residential zoning. And it was like, none of that was still in their brains. And so when we were bringing up things like residential access definitions or single lot exemption, it was like out of the blue. Like, where did this come from? I'm like, okay, I didn't realize I needed to like give you an executive summary of the May conversation to have an August conversation with you. But it did, at least it was an important lesson for me that like, we've got to go back to reframing the issue each time, because people aren't going to remember it, this collective amnesia problem, or you're going to have new listeners in the public that need the issue to reframe. So I think when it comes to common driveways, I think we'll get there. But I think framing the issue and framing it with the data, I mean, the issue is, we can pull up the Forest Avenue, Google Earth and show the pork chop lots and what that creates in terms of like a rat's nest of common driveways. And then layer on that the benchmarking that Woody did that showed we're way off what is the norm in terms of standards. And then hop into the text of the regulations. Again,
Yeah.
it feels like
And maybe we can, and I don't want to do it now, but rephrase this another time to address Clark and others. I think there are 2 or 3 things that we're proposing that all impair the application or administration of the subdivision control law, which should be near and dear to the planning board's heart. For example, single lot exemption. If you can put 3 houses, if you can take a 60,000 square foot lot in or lots in the RC district and plunk a house on a 20,000 foot portion of it, it really undermines what the subdivision control bylaw is supposed to do, which is to, provide enough, not just access, but enough land and frontage. It ditto the common driveway. The common driveway serving up to 9 houses is a subdivision, but it's a way to get around the subdivision control law. And 2 or 3 of these things, I think, either deliberately or inadvertently, kind of undermine the planning board's very authority or opportunity to apply, sound principles to development. So maybe if we talk to Clark and any other recalcitrants there, I don't know.
Large scale subdivisions are so uncommon in this town. How many, what's there really been one, the one off Beechwood Street?
Well, you've got the Toll Brothers that did theirs.
Yeah, that one off Beechwood Street recently. But so, I don't think they think of it.
They don't think of the potential.
I don't
perhaps.
think of subdivisions a lot because we don't see them a lot.
We haven't yet.
But yet they're
That's a good
allowing subdivisions to happen with less regulation and less.
Yeah. No,
Less
I'm with you. That's
construction.
exactly
Right,
the point I would try to make. And so
Yeah.
I think maybe we could help Clark or somebody see the merits to a common driveway argument or whatever else it is, tying it to subdivision, control, which is probably the essence of a planning board's responsibility, at least in this town.
I strongly agree.
So
Everybody-
anyway, I mean, I don't think we have to, chew up an hour debating how we might, the tactic, but not right now, but I think we'll have another bite or 2 at the apple, planning board apple.
Yeah, just surprised to hear that to date, the feedback.
It was a bit of a bummer, Cassie,
Yeah.
to be honest. And I don't know if it was just like one-off meeting, but it did make me pause a little bit because it was like, okay, if we're having to.
Clark is opposed to changing height. He'd like to see height tall or taller, not short or shorter. And so on it goes.
He was sort of the man of maximum flexibility. you know, and he throws it out there. He's like, I'm willing to be convinced, but you have to walk me through all the data. And when I had a follow-up conversation with Clark, I said, Clark, that's what the zoning bylaw working group does, is go through the data. If you want to participate in our meetings, like, they're open and you can come and roll around in all the data with us. But like, some of this, you're going to have to take an executive summary from the zoning bylaw working group in order to get comfortable. So we just have to balance that, you know, people want to be convinced that the data is there, the issue is there, so it just, again, the consensus building is going to require us repeating ourselves and reframing the issues to make sure that people understand why we think it's important. That's all.
To Tom's point, it could have just been the timing of it too.
Yeah.
Well, he and I had a private meeting, and one of his things is, he said, all of this is to make things more restrictive. He does think we're being restrictive, to which I said, there's a difference between being restrictive and having some standards in the first place that you don't now have, which doesn't allow you to control anything, which is what I perceive our current situation to be. But so, he needs to see it in a different light than automatically saying any change is automatically a restriction on somebody. It's better than the free. It's better than the free for all we have, and without any defined criteria. There's cases he wants to turn something down too, but we can't turn it down because we don't have any legal basis to turn it down. So
Yep.
I tried to explain it to him in that context, but we'll see.
I think I think it's very clear that the purpose of all of this is to provide reasonable regulations or restriction, because this is the way in which a community basically sets up the standards that it wants to see and maintain. Otherwise, it is a free-for-all, and there are no controls. So yes, if I'm a developer, yes, if I'm an architect, I want to be free to do whatever it is that I do. But from the public perspective, we want to set the standards that the community wishes to say, this is what we wish to be. And the other side of that, from the perspective of developers, architects, people with property, is knowing what you could do provides you the freedom to build to that standard, knowing that you'll be able to build what you propose. So there's two sides of it, but we do need to set those standards.
Okay. I'm glad to hear you say that, Jack, because it sort of underscores the support that you and I think the select board are saying when you're setting it in the goals of, like, we're hearing it from the public. People don't want a free for all. They want to know that there are standards both from themselves and for the community, and getting to what the standards is the hard conversation, but it's an important conversation.
But I think part of it that does inform this, the outcome, is what do comparable towns do? And I think we now have data that say in many respects, Cohasset's out of step. All we're trying to do is bring it back into step with a number of comparable, if you will, brand name towns.
Yeah,
We're not trying to
exactly.
forge new, particularly new ground here. To
No,
Jack's point, we're
We're
just
just
trying to
aligning
be,
ourselves to our neighbors in similar towns.
yeah.
Yeah. Again,
The barn doors have been open wide for a while. Let's hope there's still some horses left inside.
so I guess
That's been my point for a long time, Jack. And that's,
Music to Tom's ears.
Can I say one other thing about our members the other night? When Katie was doing her presentation about what the master plan committee and those working group was up to, very generalized stuff, there was all this enthusiasm, including from like a guy like Eric who doesn't say much. Oh, we're going to plan. We're doing comprehensive planning. That's great. That's great. It's then the next part of the presentation, when you get into bylaws and regulations and the actual means of accomplishment, that's where the disconnect starts to happen. They all want to plan and be good planners. They really do, but they get caught up in the actual means of doing it. And that's where we have to focus with these guys.
Yeah, all the more reason why our board is so productive and meaningful.
Yeah. So I guess bottom line is that I will, Tom is on the planning board. He'll give us, as soon as you hear dates of public hearings for regulations, I think it's gonna be important for multiple members of the zoning bylaw working group to be
Yeah.
there to support the work and underscore why it's important. We can refine our arguments at a later meeting as Woody suggested, but you know, it was just Tom and I, it was beginning of August, but the resistance or the lack of enthusiasm.
Yes, a
was-
lack of comment, yeah.
Yeah, was hard. So I think we need to up our game, and I'm sure we can drive to the hoop on this, but it's going to take some work on our part to just make sure that we're all there and we've got a really tight story. So in terms of the common driveway standards themselves, Tom, I think that I'm trying to look through this. There were some comments here from, I believe, Woody, this is you.
Yeah,
Those are, I think just some, not grammatical, but some just improvements to the syntax and the writing. I don't think there was anything
there wasn't anything of a real substance. I mean, the reason I crossed out the actual, whatever exists is actual. So frontage, that doesn't tell us anything.
Yeah.
That frontage must be actual. All frontage, if it exists, is actual, even if it's bad frontage or
Yeah,
whatever. But that's all.
Okay.
I'm just always worry about language being misinterpreted or creating another
excess language, got it.
loophole or another loophole that some slick lawyer can.
No such thing.
All right, then the next one was down here at the bottom of that paragraph, extreme lot configurations. I think we can strike that because I think you're right. It opens up another.
Well, I don't know what extreme means. And I don't want to try to parse it here, but I could just, and I won't mention particular lawyers, but I can envision a couple who come before the zoning board who'd love to spend 20 minutes arguing what extreme means.
All right.
Yep.
I don't want to even hear that or waste my time on that.
Yep,
So that's why I'm recommending we
delete it. I'm
Get
fine.
rid of
I think
it.
I'm fine with that.
But on the contrary, Woody, I thought that the whole purpose of this bylaw was that the planning board had jurisdiction on deciding, so couldn't, not just legal advice, but couldn't it also be have the planning board's discretion to define what extreme means? So, you know, for example, the Forest Ave screenshots that Katie has put together, couldn't the planning board say that's too extreme and that would constitute a
Sure,
decision?
they can say that, and if a developer could say, you're misinterpreting what extreme means, and I'll cite you a case law or two, and I'm going to appeal.
And this is one of those sections that's already in the existing common driveway regulation
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't change.
Okay.
In order to minimize change, again, for the benefit of my planning board. But
Well, okay, so why don't we
I
just-
get it, and I'm perfectly fine with making more edits to it, but the original intent was just to change the key things that we needed changed and not get them into thinking about a whole rewrite. But if it needs the rewrite, then we should do it now.
Well, I think these rewrites are really kind of word changes more than substance changes, and I'd be very happy just to sort of ask Carolyn, Murray, am I over worrying this thing?
All
Am
right.
I trying to over edit, in which case, fine. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of it is that even if we're sitting at the public hearing, we can make edits right there at that hearing and pass an edited version. So, you know, even if Carolyn doesn't weigh in on, I mean, I will make some changes to this text. That's the one that we start working from for the public hearing. And if Carolyn can't weigh in until the hearing itself, that's fine. We have that flexibility with this, unlike with the zoning on.
yeah, okay, well, all right, I mean, I don't, yeah, you can.
That is the
No,
beauty
this
of regulations versus bylaws, is that you can do it real time, I guess, in terms of changes.
Yep.
Okay, so that was that. highway surveyor, this actually came up, Tom, when the planning board was talking about it. Do we have a highway surveyor and do we trust the highway surveyor?
I think the title might, when this was
Add that to
probably written,
Jason's title.
when this was written, it was probably before the consolidated DPW was created.
Yep.
The highway surveyor was the head of the highway department, and then we had somebody separate for tree and part. I think the title still exists.
Well, let's put the real title in, whatever.
All right, well, so
Because
it
it's a
would be the DPW director.
Or I would put the DPW director because they do confirm.
Yeah, yeah, Brian is in charge of highways.
Okay.
Guys, I'm sorry, I actually have to jump for 3 PM. I apologize.
No, it's great. And Cassie, I'll catch you up and we can talk about the RFP too.
RFP. Okay, thanks. Thanks for everyone's hard work.
Thank you,
Hi,
Casey. Cassie.
See you next Wednesday.
See you on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll update that and that'll be a global change. I think it's a couple places in the document. Okay, next up, on this one, this was me, Tom. Did we get comments back from Brian Joyce? And this was the original language. So I assume that we're comfortable with keeping it. I thought we had asked him the question and I don't remember getting an answer back.
Brian made a change, I believe, in section 8. And I don't think he sent us anything on section 5, so.
Well, we could loop back and just see if he has any.
Yeah, I'll give him one last look at it. But the changes to 5 and 8 were in response to his comments, so.
Yep.
Who's got a big dog?
That's Peter.
That's Peter.
Yes, that's mouth.
Peter's dog is named Fang, and you have to worry about that.
Hey, shut up.
All right, so Tom, you'll circle back to Brian and ping him on this one.
Yeah.
Sometimes just like literally cutting and pasting the language in to an email is more effective than having them open attachment, I've found.
Yeah,
My
okay,
2 cents.
okay.
And then similarly with 8, that was the same thing. We wanted to make sure that the vernacular he used is exactly what you wrote in. I just thought, again, he was going to give us the exact language we should be referencing. So I just wanted to make sure that we get it from him.
Okay.
And then I think that was it on common driveways. What do you, I don't think I missed anything else of yours. It was pretty
No,
light.
no, that was fine. I just had a couple of little words.
Okay. All right. So common
always-
driveways.
I always appreciate Woody's wordsmithing. No, I do. I mean that seriously. He's excellent at it.
Okay. So the next one, residential access. Tom, this is the one that our group just had less time to react to because we had kind of started leading you in the direction of let's put it in the bylaws, and then we backed off and said, you know what, we're going to follow our own rules, which was don't add more junk to the bylaws, put it in rules and regulations. And now we've heard that from Carolyn Murray, new counsel, and we've also heard it from Bob Mitchell in the training session. Don't muck up your bylaws with rules and regulations. So, or things that could be rules and regulations. So this was one that our group looked at once, and after I listened to the hearing, and I think Woody, you digested it more. So this has a couple more comments for what it's worth than the common driveways. All right, let me get to my notes here. So just for context, Jack, we have common driveways, rules and regulations, which covers one type of residential access. We have subdivision control bylaw that covers private ways that are put in place under that rules and regulations. We obviously have public ways, which are our highest standard. And what we were trying to address with this one is putting in place residential access, which addresses non-subdivision private ways. So above common driveways, but below subdivision grade private ways. And so we've got a boatload of these in town. This is the majority of of private ways in town. This is Black Rock Road. This is Black Horse Lane. This is Howe Road. You know, those are the private ways that we've got ones that are existing, and then we've got to address new ones. And so that's the genesis for this.
They appear to be oriented towards construction standards, right? As opposed to a definition of what is or isn't a private way that is qualified for
Yep.
frontage.
So
Well, it's our new definition of street and way is the definition. This is both construction standards, but also dimensions. You know, how
Right.
wide it can be, how wide the pavement has to be, and how long it can be.
But as related to buildable ways or any private way, even if it's like Diab, which is not technically a buildable road. You can't have a buildable lot fronting on Diab.
in my mind, this was being
Yeah,
tied
yeah.
back to the definition that we were making.
It's what?
I would-
Say it again, Katie. I gotta go.
I was saying that in my mind, the private way that we're addressing here is tied to the way definition that we're revising in the bylaws. So the ways that we're defining in the bylaws tie directly to what is legal frontage.
Okay, it's the legal frontage way, because there are other ways that don't provide legal frontage. And there's no argument over those in
No,
most cases.
no, Diab Lane would be subject to this. And unless something was grandfathered, it would have to comply with this.
You would have to comply with it if it wants to be a legal
Yeah,
way, provide legal frontage.
correct.
Doesn't-
So
right.
if somebody was to propose a new house and expanding the, I don't, there are houses on Diab Lane right now, aren't there? Isn't there at least one building?
Yeah,
All right, so if somebody wanted to propose a second building on that Diab Lane, they'd have to upgrade to these standards.
Yeah, there are two on Diab and they're proposing two more. And so.
Right, well, so
the-
the question is gonna be whether they're grandfathered. It depends where they are in that process of their
well, they aren't
application.
grandfathered.
Okay.
John is on the line, or is he off? But at any rate, he's,
All right, that's fine.
No, I'm here. If you had a question on Diab Lane,
But the answer is between the common driveways, this and the subdivision rules, any kind of road or access in town would be covered. So yes, everything would be covered.
okay.
And the Diab lanes of the world would have to conform to this. And, for example, a new house was built on my street 3 years ago. Mine's a private way. It's certainly built more like a subdivision road, but technically, when that house was added, they would have had to make sure there was compliance with this regulation had it been in effect.
Yeah, I would like the subcommittee, at least for the time being, and I've got some language that I'd like to circulate as well, clearly on access, that we start or stop, if you will, thinking about a lot of this stuff as grandfathered. In the law, there's very little grandfathering
Yes.
that goes on. Pre-existing roads have no veracity or anything else of the sort. They need to be accepted, blah, 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 by formal vote. They need to comply, as Tom's saying, with certain construction standards. And there is very little in the law that grandfathers a road or a use. You can have a grandfathered house and a grandfathered lot size, but you can't have grandfathered roads unless they've been accepted by the town or by the planning board. Planning board can do that as well, but it has to be a formal action.
Yeah.
And yet we have developers come in, oh, well, this existed in 1932. I've got a plan here, BFD.
And we have a planning board members that many times believe that.
I know, as much as I talk to him, he still believes that ancient ways have some status, and they don't. But anyway, just from our standpoint as a group, I'd like to get the town to think about what has been approved, what isn't, what should be approved, what isn't. Make John's life a lot easier because we've got these, as Katie said, 70% of our roads are private.
Yeah.
And most of those have never been, don't comply physically or have never been accepted by the town as being worthy of being called a qualified way. Anyway, that's editorial.
So just to jump back to the comments, the blue that I have at the top here, this is me just reflecting on the conversation, saying that John, I think it's super important that you're at the public hearings around common driveways and residential property access, because this not only is coming from the zoning bylaw working group as a request, but it's also something that you want as the zoning enforcement officer. And I think Tom and I got more pushback. And if you had been there saying, no, I'm your building inspector, I'm your zoning enforcement officer, and I want this, it would be really helpful.
Yep.
So as long as you agree with what the regulations are and can support it, which I think you will, like that, your voice was missing, but we'll need it at the public hearing. So Tom, there wasn't really anything of substance here, but rather just that thought.
All right, all I would ask is that if there's like a final set of edits, what do you want to put in, that I have them before Wednesday's planning board meeting?
Yep, so let's keep on going just quickly, because there are some substantive edits here. It's under design and construction. And again, I don't think I missed anything of yours, Woody, call out if I did, but this is under 4. Again, I just wanted to confirm that we had language from Brian, and whatever you get for common driveways, I think is gonna, it's actually for drainage, it'll probably be the same thing. For construction, it may be slightly different, Tom, because I think the standards here are higher than what's in the common driveways language.
And I think intended to be so.
Exactly, but I just want to make sure that we've got Brian focused and like whatever that he's nodding and has provided us. So that's what C, and that's what my comment against C and D are.
Okay.
My comment against G, I don't want to blow this up, but we put the common driveways maximum length at 350.
Yeah.
We have our maximum length of subdivision standard at 1500.
Yeah.
I felt like 500 was a little bit short, to be honest. Like the more I thought about it, and again, this is addressing new private ways, but 500 feet is really nothing.
That's all right. No, I think that just was taken from the Plymouth bylaw unchanged. So.
And so I was I measured Black Rock Road, and it's 0.2 miles or thereabout. And so I was throwing it out to the group. I feel like 500 people are going to react to that and say, could we increase it to 750 or 1,000? Still in between subdivision and common driveways, but maybe a scooch closer to subdivision than common driveways.
I think, for example, Hingham is at 800 feet, if that's a help as far as a reference.
Okay.
I hate following what Hingham does.
And that's for private ways?
Yes, dead end.
Dead end private ways. Okay.
I think from way back, and maybe it's changed, but I recall being involved in a project in Situate, but Situate was 650, I believe.
Can we split the difference and call it 750 and make it our own?
That's fine.
It felt, it's half. I know it sounds arbitrary. It's half of subdivision, and it's, substantially larger than a common driveway at 350.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, and do you agree with my 2 comments under here in red?
I want you to explain them, Woody.
Well, I think it can be put in another place. The second one, utility installations, I think we have to cite that. You're citing other examples, and we have to be able to install utilities in addition to anything else. But I think we've got to keep citing the fact that this private way that we're talking about here must be an accepted private way. A private way cannot connect to another private way unless it's part of a subdivision, period, over and out. That's state law. That's not discretionary.
And what is the state law on that one?
The state law says, just what I say here, a private way cannot connect to another private way unless it's part of an approved subdivision.
So I was looking for the exact.
The citation,
I think, I think the citation is in the new definition for street and way that we, which is sitting out in my car. The piece of paper with that on it is sitting in my car, but,
Okay.
Look at the definition we created for street and way. I think we just make a simple reference to the state statute. I think it's,
yeah, I don't even know, Tom, it may be in 40A, or John may know.
hold on a second.
Why don't I make a note and get?
No,
you the
let me find it
citation?
on my computer. I should be able to find it quickly here. I don't
No, I
have-
agree with your comment, Woody. That I think since it's rules and regulations, we can be as wordy as we want because we can amend it when we want. But I do agree that restating things like these non-subdivision private ways needing to have legal frontage and not connecting one private way to another is an important clarification. I almost would move it up.
It reiterates what will be there elsewhere, but I think but probably an important reiteration, not just empty words. It doesn't take a lot of, I'm not recommending a lot of words, but I am recommending that this be put in so that if somebody is looking at the regulations, it'll, I mean, this is not discretionary. We can't change state law.
No.
I would almost move it to the
No.
top and
Where-
make it a new A or include it right after the definition of non-subdivision private way under point 4. So it's right there at the
Okay.
top.
All right. So in the definition that we're proposing to change, we're referencing chapter 90 and chapter 4181L. So let me go to chapter 90 is many things.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think it's in the private way connecting to a private way is not, I don't think it's in 4181L. It must be in 90.
Well, I think the important thing is that I think the important thing is that when people look at these, reiterating things that might be in chapter wherever or whatever, but for the people who are actually applying this and our citizens, for us to reiterate basic things like that, and this is to Woody's point, I think it's very, very important, and I strongly support that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how many times, I mean, including even in the zoning board, we will, from time to time, and we don't deal with ways really, but from time to time, people will come in and say, oh, well, this is okay because you can drive down it. So, and they're maybe they're ignorant of state law, maybe they do know state law. I don't, and hope we don't.
Mhm.
But it would make life easier. Anyway.
Yeah.
I can look up. I'm not going to do it here.
No, 81L makes no.
Well, it's an 81 something probably.
No, yeah, 81L is just definitions. So
Yeah.
I think it's easier. Look, let's not take time here. I
no,
can.
it means we have to change that definition of street we were using too. So because the 81L is an incorrect reference, but that's all right. Go ahead, onward.
Okay.
Fine.
Onward.
Don't
Okay.
Don't wait on me. I'm just.
So the next thing, I think was a macro comment that Woody made about why restate common driveways here. This regulation is specifically about, I think what you're attempting to do here, Tom, is that if we turn you down as a non-subdivision private way, we, the planning board, could qualify you as a common driveway, but I don't think we need to repeat, as Woody was saying, A through G. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't. You know what? I don't even know why that was there, unless that came from the Plymouth bylaw and I just didn't change it.
Well, it says like in the case that you're, oh, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I guess maybe just that first sentence is just, if it's not qualified as this, you can try qualification and then reference the common driveway regs.
Yeah.
Refer them to that.
Yeah, so that's a substantive change, but probably a good cleanup.
I make the mistaken presumption that other towns write their bylaws perfectly too.
Yes. Woody, I'll let you, this is mostly you, so I'll let you walk through the changes in red. I think most of it was like just good syntax clarification.
Yeah, well, let's see. All pre-existing private ways not ways, well, anyway, that's just a reversal of words, a syntax thing.
Okay.
Servicing house, but I don't know of private ways in Cohasset that don't have a house on them. They all have houses. Many of them are non-conforming from the standpoint of pre-existing. But I don't know. I just grammatically, I don't know what to say. I mean, houses are serviced by ways. So just change it. The first sentence, that's easy. And I'm just curious as to why the bylaw might have talked about this, all new non-subdivision private ways and all the pre-existing private ways not servicing a house. I think that's what it means. Private ways not servicing a house. All private ways service a house as far as I know in Cohasset, so it probably doesn't apply to them at all.
So I think
I'm puzzled.
the point of, I think the point of this was that if you're a new non-subdivision private way, you have to follow for all these requirements. If you are a pre-existing non-subdivision private way,
Yeah,
we're saying for pre-existing non-subdivision private way, like Black Rock Road, if there's an increase in the number of houses to be served by that way, you are required to bring up construction, drainage, and flood hazard compliance with A, B, F, and G above.
okay, well, I didn't see that here. I agree with you.
Okay.
I didn't agree with, I mean, I didn't see it saying that if anything more is going to happen on a private way, you know, outside of the subdivision
Tom,
process.
does it fix it? I think, I feel like maybe what was confusing Woody is that first sentence, if it actually starts for pre-existing private ways already servicing, for pre-existing non-subdivision private ways. And then it says any increase in the number of houses to be served by that way shall.
Is that what it's, I don't see, where do you say that? Where do
So
you see those words?
I'm suggesting we delete these words that I just highlighted.
Okay,
So, and I'm suggesting instead of saying just private ways here, it would read for pre-existing non-subdivision private ways.
right.
And then it would hop here and say.
Okay, I follow you here. So in other words, what's there is there, it's grandfathered. We don't want to mess with that. But if you're going to increase the usage along such a private way, there has to be some oversight and some compliance with safety standards, among other things.
Correct.
That's really what you're saying.
I think it was this language that got Woody confused, Tom, and I'm not even sure what this.
It's easy to confuse me.
Again, this is Plymouth's language. I did not scrutinize it to the nth degree, but they must have situations where there's roadways, and they probably do out in the forest somewhere or down.
No, I did talk to somebody actually from Plymouth, and they said because of the area, you know, Plymouth is the largest single town in Massachusetts by land area and by a lot. I mean, it's thousands, tens of thousands of acres. They don't carefully scrutinize the development of new private ways, because they're, as Tom said, they're way the hell in the boondocks. They might be 15 miles away from downtown.
Yeah,
And some of those private ways access farmland, areas for horse grazing, other
Yeah,
situations like that.
this is fine. I mean, we need to cohasitize anything. we
Right,
borrow-
right.
or anything we borrow from another town, and I just,
So I think what you guys are getting at here, this does address it. Any increase in the number of houses,
Yep.
correct.
triggers something.
So I
I mean,
think this is the language that I just edited it on the screen. So hopefully this makes sense, to folks.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I'm entirely in favor of that. And we don't have that now, really.
Okay,
The only thing my blue comments here, Tom, where I just thought instead of just citing 4C, we could just put in construction, drainage and flood hazard, just so people didn't have to float up above to remind themselves what
Fine.
C, D, and E were.
Fine.
And then, the blue comments down here you can delete, but I just wanted to remind myself, I think that there, again, Clark, looking for ultimate flexibility, had concerns that those landowners that are the ones that are developing the final lots on pre-existing ways are now going to be burdened with bringing up the improvement of the way overall. I'm not apologetic.
yeah, TFB on that one. I mean, who cares?
I'm only raising it so that the whole zoning bylaw working group understands that Clark's going to be reticent to force that burden on the last man in, but the last man in many cases is changing the use case of the private way.
Right, changing the intensity, most likely. They're
Yeah.
adding to traffic and they have an obligation. And if they, I mean, I don't know.
Well,
I'm
let me
apologetic.
give you a little perspective on this. Is something we had to deal with on conservation. A subdivision that was done many years ago, and one of the things, in order to handle all their drainage, they ran all their drainage pipes and swales into one little area, which made sense. Years later, somebody found a little patch of that could be buildable and decided they wanted to build on that. And then they claimed hardship. Well, come on. The reason it wasn't built or done, but anyway, this is just a little history of the type of things on this. I think if you buy that property and you've got to do that, I agree with Tom.
Oh, okay, so you're taking a hard line like the rest of us. So I think
Yes.
we need to be, again, a united front to the planning board. Like, this is an issue. It's a land use issue where the increased use has not been addressed. Take Diab Lane, where it has 2 houses on it and the developer is proposing doubling the usage. Yes, there needs to be an upgrade in the standard of that road, on top of everything else in terms of being legal frontage before a permit is issued.
Yeah, people who buy stuff as what they bought and then claim hardship for what they bought, come on.
Not a
Okay.
hardship.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it sounds like we're all on the same page on this one. We need to be a united front in front of the planning board, just so that.
Right. By the way, I do have a 3:30 that
Okay.
I do have to do. So, by the way, I must say that I'm very impressed with what people say and the thought that's gone into this. Such a big believer in what boards and commissions and bylaw groups do. So thank you. Congratulations. Rah, rah, rah. Okay.
Thanks, Jack. All right.
Thank you. See you all later.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay, we'll keep you posted. All right, thanks. And I think there's just one other small change in terms of shall here.
Oh, yeah.
That was it.
Probably throughout, whenever we run into the word shall in a bylaw, and I know that they, that was liberally used in days gone by. Legally in the zoning board, we've found to our chagrin that shall takes any discretion away from you.
Yeah,
Okay. So we'll change that. And then in 7, you added a parenthetical nor its existence on an approval not required plan, which.
Yeah, that reiterates the obvious. I mean, if you think it's redundant too much.
What?
drop it, but it doesn't have a lot of words.
Oh, number 7, yeah, number 7 was because of the point Woody made about ancient ways, and I thought, this was a good place that we should state that in writing
Yeah,
to both, to both the boards and to the developers that, ancient ways are not magical things that give you all these rights. So this was not in the Plymouth bylaw, but so completely my add-on and is subject to all kinds of
well,
words.
no, I certainly endorse that, and I thought maybe this would also be a good place to reiterate the A&R issue. I mean, it's elsewhere.
So he was suggesting after the ancient way, saying nor its existence on
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And then the other little parenthetical thing is, I don't know, there may be better wording, but basically from compliance with current standards for either of these regulations. I mean, that's all.
That's fine.
Okay.
Because it's standards that we want to comply with as opposed to access. Well, I guess we want both, but I don't care.
John, now that you've sort of listened to the conversation, is there anything that we've missed from your perspective that you would need or want as a zoning enforcement officer?
Oh, I think I've got myself. Yep, there we are. No, I think we've covered most of the clarification, even a little bit we've done here. Too, I don't, as far as the, common driveway and those subdivision control, I think that's a great improvement.
Okay.
I hope I just didn't miss new business.
What happened? Did you?
My phone was ringing.
All right. So Tom, I know it's changes from the language you were planning, but hopefully the cleanup.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's final by Wednesday. Hold on.
Okay.
And just a quick follow-up, we're not looking at anything in 305.4, the large home review.
Review.
No, that name's a blast from the
Not
past.
that.
Katie, when are we tackling that?
But I remember the name.
That was we had agreed that was the planning board needed to come up with a recommendation there. We have not touched it.
Well, all right.
I mean, eventually we need to poke, I think we need to come back with our recommendation. I'm not sure they're going to get to one, but
That's what I think, but
Just maybe one spot too that is coming up. I've noticed too that they have the exemption for lot size up to 6,000 square foot in the home. One idea might be to change that lot area to uplands.
If it was in
wait, okay, Thomas muted. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, just kind of one thought there. I know it's kind of off topic. We probably come back to it later, but in that area, they have up to you build a 6,000 square foot house with the large lot area. One thought there might be to say yes with the lot area, but we might make it uplands lot area, because we are getting lots that have come before us that have 2-3 acres of marsh and wetlands, and the upland area is very small, but they're able to build 5,000, 6,000 square foot home on that area.
and that's, I'm sorry, is that in 5.4 or is that elsewhere that you're referring to the 6,000 square foot?
No, that's 5.4, I think B.
Okay. I don't have.
But
Okay.
Again, just by inserting upland area
Okay.
in regards to the 10%, it would help to give a little bit more control there in
Yeah,
those areas.
and for now, I think that's good. I think if we move towards FARs, that will probably, that might be a metric that we could incorporate, but we're not ready yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I did, as I say, it was kind of off topic, so.
No, I think I don't think that's inconsistent. I think other towns, I can think of a couple of towns that expressly exclude, wetlands, tidal areas.
Yes, Situate does. I know
Yeah,
they're in their area lot coverage.
for good reason.
Yep.
I mean, it's part of the landscape, but it's not part of a habitable, it's not habitable.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right. I've got that jotted down, John, and thank you for raising it. And I think we'll keep that filed away as we get back to places that are that can apply to. But you're right. I mean, hearing from you in terms of like, what's your hot button issue of the month is good. What's been bugging you this month when you've had to do reviews? So, all right. So I think that's it. You want to just bring up the special town meeting articles. I sort of need Tom back for this since this is his baby. Tom, are you back?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. And I would love to wrap up by 4. So I was hoping that we could make this the last item and just kind of go through the articles and just agree on the 3 and the language.
I thought we were gonna hold off on height, Katie.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is the markup, and I haven't. This is the markup from last time. I haven't deleted the one. So the proposal that based on
Okay, this is process, not what the height is. This
Yeah,
is how you measure.
yes, but Clark. So the proposal is that we do, as Tom had said before, 3 articles. What is currently 2, single lot exemption. What is 3, which is the access related definitions and includes common driveway.
Yeah.
And then 5, which is ledge protection. The proposal was to include in the broader comprehensive redraft and reorganization any changes to the table of area regulations. Like we were just getting pushback from the planning board. If you're going to be doing more later, why not do it all at once? Don't nickel and dime me, basically. Or if you're going to nickel and dime me, I'm going to cause you to go through a very painful exercise of justifying every nickel and dime. And then, honestly, the height thing, it was really Clark that was just on a anything that was going to
offend his architectural sensibilities so that he could make a nice big attic or space or something. It's exactly where he's coming from.
Right. But here's a problem with putting the words in, the process in, measurement process without the numbers. And that has to do with the first bullet under the top measure of height shall be determined as follows.
Yep.
This pat on the slope roof to the ridge line today, on a slope roof to the ridge line is 40 feet. The actual height of a building is measured as 35 to the midpoint. So if we want to go to the ridge line, you're basically moving height up by 5 feet.
No, we're
not?
we're making the ridge line 35 feet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, but then we have that other provision in there where, okay.
But the problem was that if we're not going to do the table of area regulations, should we be changing the height definition or just do it?
But the point, the point with Clark here on that one is that we were not proposing the change to the 35-foot height except in the harbor, and I don't mind keeping the harbor separate. Other than that, we were adding 30 feet for a flat roof, but that's kind of, I'm not too worried about that. That can wait, but we're not proposing a change to the basic 35 feet. We're just changing how it gets measured.
Yeah, I misstated it. It works the other way around. The slope roof to the ridge line, it's now 40 feet. And when you read this, you've lowered it to 35 feet.
Correct, which is the intent. And so again, I mean, it's here, it's written,
Yeah, but I think we've got to bring the whole A subcommittee in on this discussion. I'm not opposed to it per se, but I think it's a significant change. and one that we shouldn't slip through. And then we have to talk to the planning board about it. Because if they say what you're doing in effect, in a de facto way, is lowering height by 5 feet in this town.
I'd rather, I guess where I got to this.
Well, but nobody opposed that except Clark.
I know, but it's not
Do
gonna.
they realize?
There
Well,
will be people that are gonna,
Yeah, I can't help if they can't realize it, but
But the question is, do you have 3 votes?
yes.
Okay, I mean, do
But-
you have enough
but
votes to
Kate-
make these
but-
things go?
Correct, but Katie has made the point that it would be better if we had unanimity.
Absolutely, I agree.
I think we have 3 for
But
sure.
you can't let Clark hold
No.
the whole thing hostage.
No, and in the best scenario, I think it could be made 4-1 in that case, but whatever. To just to shorten time, I mean, as we were discussing before,
Then Clark is an outlier and, that's that.
yeah, Clark is an outlier. Nobody else expressed a strong opinion. I think everybody else sees the logic of why is the top height measured at a midpoint in a roof? I
Right.
think everybody else sees that. He just wants it from an architect's flexibility standard. And he pointed out that, well, nobody's actually meeting that. And I said, well, Clark, look at the last few things we've had. Everybody's pushing the limits on everything. Setbacks, every measurement we have in the bylaw, people are beginning to push the limits on all of them.
I'm just concerned that this might not have been as apparent to a couple of your colleagues, Tom,
Well,
as it is to all of us. That's all.
okay, that's fine.
I think Eric Potter is gonna wake up and you're gonna be at a 3-2. And I think if it's packaged as a broader conversation about massing and.
All right,
all the
that's fine.
Regulations, I think you either sell the whole package, but selling this piece of the package and having it go through on a 3-2 just puts us on unshaky ground that I don't think.
That's fine. Then we'll take it off the fall town meeting. So, fine.
It's
That's
not off
fine.
the table. It's just, again, I'm
Well,
trying to build momentum here.
Well, look, yeah, we don't have to submit this for the Section 5 hearing until end of September, first week of October. So we have a little time to think about it again, but,
I think 3 plus a moratorium is gonna be more than enough work for us
Yeah.
to fight off.
yeah. All right, that's fine. Can I get to the 3 definition ones? Because something popped up as we were discussing other things today.
Okay.
So the definition of street/way,
Mhm.
and I know Woody made a comment the other day, we shouldn't use both words. Well, street is a common word that people use, way is a common word that the state statutes use. So I kind of think it should be / knowing, so we know that the definition applies to both words, whichever one people use.
All right.
So the way we have this written out to reference in the state law, and as we're sitting here and we were discussing the regulation before, Chapter 81L Section 81L is just a bunch of definitions for the subdivision control law and doesn't define a street or a way. So that's an incorrect reference. It may be somewhere else, but that 81L is an incorrect reference.
It's not though. The language right below that I put in right here is out of 81L.
All right. I guess my point is I'm trying to make is we want to be very clear how we're defining this in light of the discussion we just had about the regulation.
Yeah, I agree.
The reference to Chapter 90, I'm looking at it right now. In Chapter 90, Section 1 is the definitions for Chapter 90. And Chapter 90 is mostly the stuff that deals with the licensing of cars and airplanes. But many of the violations depend, for motor vehicle violations depend on you being on a way in order to be guilty of them. So a way is defined as any public highway, private way laid out under authority of statute, i.e. the subdivision control law or an A&R, way dedicated to public use, or way under the control of park commissioners or body having like powers. So if we incorporate that definition, that's the state definition of a way.
Which makes a mess out of 81.
So, John, if you're still there, or anybody, and I will if I have time, if we could look at a couple of other bylaws.
I don't think you need to go there, Tom. I could, every time I've looked at a case or an A&R handbook or anything else, or Mark Bobrowski's handbook.
Yep.
The wording Katie has put in there is what's used.
It's the 81, it's
It's the
the
81L
All
word.
right, all right, that's fine.
It's totally accepted in the state.
and that's what, and I believe, I'm gonna try and see if I can get to it quickly, but when I brought up the handful of examples, I think it was 2 meetings ago, street definitions here. It was always 81L.
If I
think
could just say, chapter 90 is really more utilized about the funds that we get for the roads and highways.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, but it also defines the kind of way you can get a ticket on.
So-
That's the other reason for it. But anyway,
This is Framingham, so this is what I showed us 2 meetings ago on the
yeah,
definition.
yeah.
So this is language right out of 81L.
Yeah, they didn't invent anything there. All they did is copy.
Yeah,
Can you go back, scroll back up to that for a minute?
I'm sorry, this one? Yeah,
Yeah,
Framingham,
that one.
right here.
Yeah, you know what, that's. Yeah. That's
So
a-
there was this example, and then,
That's an embellished chapter 90 definition.
and then
that's
there
fine.
was a super simple one that I liked. I think this is where we got mixed up. Who was this? We pulled this one.
Yeah, we use that one and I'm not,
It had 90, and maybe we just want 41, 81L.
I entirely want the.
well,
want
no,
the
that's
latter.
that's what the definition in the proposed bylaws says.
Right, let's just
It
drop
is
any
this,
reference
it
to
is this
chapter
simple
90.
version, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable with the simple version, but it'll work, I guess, if everybody,
I'm okay adding the language as long as it's exactly from 81L, and this is what's exactly in
Hold on.
81L.
And 81L really is a land use law, much more than funding something or whatever, or airplanes or lanes. I mean, this is so standard that I don't think you could find a court case that would disagree with this. This
So
is where they start.
how about we say a way affords the principal means of access as defined under Mass General Law 41S 81L, and then include this language down here, which just restates exactly the Mass General Law. Because I think, to Jack's point earlier, like, people are gonna look here and wanna know what 4181L says, so let's give it to them.
yeah,
But let's give it to them unadulterated. Let's give them. the step.
Yeah, Katie, I would have an edit. I think that there are 4 types of ways, 3 of which are private. It's A, a public way, or B, a way in which the clerk, blah, blah, a private way, or C, a way shown in a plan, or D, a way in a subdivision control.
which is that Framingham definition.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 4-part
Okay.
because it's important to, anyway.
You split A into 2. Okay,
Yes, exactly, because one's public and one's private.
okay.
And it doesn't change the meaning or intention at all, but it helps clarify.
Is that helpful, Tom?
Yeah, I guess, why
Why don't we do it as a board?
let me, we're taking out the simple reference to 90 and 41, correct?
No, we're gonna leave
Keeping
41 in. Take out 90.
Maybe it's something with my computer, because the last definition I'm pulling up under 41L is subdivision control. I'm not finding a definition of a way or a street, so maybe my
I'll send it to
computer,
you.
maybe my computer is chopping off the last few sections, paragraphs of 41L, but
It's long.
as long as it's in 41L, 81L, I'm fine with it.
Okay,
I'm fine with just making the simple reference, and the reference to chapter 90 is, the short version is in chapter 90, the longer expanded version of it is the Framingham definition. And it's in
Yeah.
chapter 90,
So we
section
just
1.
solve it by deleting references to 90. But where chapter 90 is going to exist for the next 30 years, but we don't need it here.
All right. All right, and the other, I didn't have any other thoughts about the other definitions, frontage and common driveway. As far as the ledge protection, I just still have to read that statute, what he cited. I think it takes away some of the intent, but we can only do what state law allows us to do.
Yeah.
And we can certainly explain it to the public that way. But
And the reference,
for the rest of you, it may be something that Woody found that where this is originally written so that we could, we wouldn't regulate what ledge had to be removed for the main house, but we would regulate through special permit for everything else in the lot. We in fact may not be able to regulate what's necessary for a driveway or a shed or an accessory structure or something.
Well, for instance, if you want to serve, okay. Dwelling,
Yeah, so
I
think we
suppose
might-
you utility, but I mean, this is state law.
No, I know, and state law isn't designed for the town of, we're the only town in the state that probably worries about ledge to regulate it in some way. It's
Most likely, you're right.
and so it's not designed for us, but I'm concerned that, what we might be left with is that, as we discussed the other day, is that maybe you're left regulating ledge removal for landscaping, but like on Windy Hill, the question is a pool. Can we regulate ledge removal to stop a pool? I'm just wondering if we could shove in the word.
Well, what this says,
necessary
subject of a permit or license.
Yeah,
You
well,
need a permit or license for a swimming pool.
yeah, we
Yes.
said, the way it's written says a special permit. I just wonder what the scope of it, when we get to the practicalities and the first one comes along, and let's say we have a Windy Hill and we put in a driveway that needs to move some ledge, and they want to put in a pool or a tennis court that needs to move some visible ledge. Do we get to regulate that? I guess we will by a special permit, and we'll see,
I thought that it was appropriate for us to ask Carolyn Murray to clarify the case law behind subject of a permit or license issued.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to understand like who's challenged it and how.
Yeah. What was the statute, by the way? Do you have that handy?
It's right here. It's chapter 40, section 2117.
Take a quick
I
look.
think I got that right. But I keep in mind that, for instance, a swimming pool is an allowed use as of right. You don't need a permit, so on and so forth. I mean,
sorry.
I don't know what this would. The
Say that
subject of
one
a
more time.
permit or license. So what if it's not a subject to a permit or license?
Well, you have to get a permit.
To do what?
It's a structure. John, wouldn't you have to get a permit for the pool?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to get a permit for the pool.
Well, if it's allowed by right, do I need a permit?
Yes,
Right.
you need a building permit.
Okay.
All
Yeah,
right, so
See, I don't have a pool, so
I'm reading.
what do I know?
Okay.
but your house is allowed by right and need a permit for that. So that's kind of the,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Jen is right on the button here. So it is subject to a permit. But if it's subject to a permit, then the permit granting authority, be it John or whomever,
All right,
decides whether it's appropriate or not, I suppose, and should they be removing ledge or not.
just the subject of a permit or license.
Anyway, prohibit shall not apply to anything which is subject to permit. They
Right.
assume, I think, that the permit process deals with removal. I mean,
I
I'm
think-
asking,
I'm reading 17, subsection 17 right now.
it's subsection, go ahead.
It starts with the premise that the town can pass an ordinance or bylaw prohibiting or regulating the removal of soil, blah, 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 blah. Any order prohibiting such removal, shall not apply to any soil which is the subject of a permit or license under the authority of the town. Well, let's it's kind of a chicken and an egg thing.
It is.
I think under this 17, we can go forward with a special permit process because it's not an outright prohibition, number one. And then it would be a permit or license that is potentially allowing some removal to occur.
Possible, yeah.
I think the way, I don't, again, I don't have the bylaw in front of me, but I think it's written that the general premise is removal is prohibited. And subsection 17 in the first part of it says we can do that. But in the second part of it, if we allow it by special permit, that should be okay. Have to think about that. And I think about maybe in light of what he's coming, maybe rewording it again and then giving it to Carolyn to take a look at.
Yeah, I see where you're going. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I don't think this subsection 17 is as big a problem as I originally thought it would be.
I have
Well, yeah,
another
I get-
appointment I have to get to, so I'll follow up with Jen and see you guys at the next meeting.
Thank you, John.
Okay,
Really
thanks.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
You know, I think maybe the operative word to support what Tom's saying is prohibiting. You can't deny somebody to remove, but it doesn't, but you could have conditions or at least a review.
Well, that subsection 17 is saying we could pass a bylaw prohibiting it, but we can't prohibit it if a permit is given. So how would so I guess it would be a situation, let's say if John went ahead and issued a building permit for somebody, and that included a driveway and a shed or a pool, tennis court, whatever, that removed exposed ledge, we would be prohibited from acting upon that after the fact. But I think before the fact, we can require it to go through a special permit because the first sentence of subsection 17 says we can in fact pass a regulation to prohibit or regulate. It says prohibit or regulate. So we are regulating by requiring a special permit for everything outside the necessary utilities in the main house. That's what that bylaw is drafted as doing. And I think we can get away with that under 17. But again, Carolyn's input on that would be,
Yeah, I think this is the Carolyn one, and if we need a decision tree to explain it to the planning board, so be it, but
yeah, it would, I mean, it would help then if Carolyn, gives us a written opinion on her interpretation of subsection 17. They're not going to listen to mine, but, I don't think she's going to come to a different conclusion, but.
okay. So the follow-up on this is to get Carolyn's input and written
Yeah,
interpretation
and
of,
perhaps do a little rewrite based on whatever else Woody had commented on about it, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think dwelling is too narrow. And I think that is not what is intended. This ledge removal cannot impede or prevent licensing boards and individuals from doing their job. You can't say because we have some ledge removal prohibition, you can't permit a toilet in a garage, you can't permit this and that, the laying down of utilities for an outbuilding or a barn if they have a horse,
I hear you, yep.
because otherwise the ledge removal would dominate every permitting board in some way.
Yeah, I guess what you're suggesting is in the current draft of this bylaw, what's allowed as of right, as far as ledge removal might need to be expanded a little bit.
Yeah. And that if there's a special permit process, have it not be so punitive that you prevent somebody from constructing a garage because it's not a dwelling.
Correct.
Or putting a toilet.
Yeah, well,
into an
the
outbuilding.
only problem with that is as you talk about the different accessory uses, yes, we would consider a driveway and a garage to be a quote unquote necessity. We would consider a pool and a tennis court not necessarily a necessity. And I worry about splitting hairs with people about that. But anyway, I guess I understand where we're all going with this. I don't think.
I don't think the town, and I may be wrong, this is where I'd like to see some examples. I don't think the town has been plagued by ledge removal to build houses. I think the problem with ledge removal has to do with landscaping and other amenities, if you will, call them amenities, that are unrelated to the primary purpose of the lot. But you know what I mean? If you have a lot and you want to build a house and there's a piece of ledge right in the middle, then remove a head. I mean, you can't
Yeah,
take
I
that
think-
right away from a property owner.
I think Windy Hill was more of that, more, about the rest of the site.
Yeah, it wasn't where the house was.
Part of it is because we told the abutters and the abutter, or they were aware that even under our current bylaw, you cannot stop earth removal in connection with the building of the house. I think where the most egregious example where this happened when it was the driveway blasted up the side on Beach Street.
Yeah.
The side of the ledge, which is what set off the alarm in 2005 when this was first discussed. But when that,
And I don't know how that went. Well, unfortunately, the way this reads is that you could go ahead and do that. I mean, that's
by
a
special permit, at least. That driveway would have been under the way this bylaw is currently written, that driveway would have been subject to a special permit. Not the house, not the septic system that's up there.
So what if the permitting board, in this case, the planning board, I guess, well, no, zoning, but who cares? Said, no, you can't blast, you can't access that part of the lot
Yeah,
from Beach Street. Would that be tantamount to denying somebody the right to build in a piece of property?
well, I think in that, if I recall that particular case, that property had other access.
Opportunities or possibilities, you mean?
I think they had a legal right of way via Mohawk Way,
Mohawk Way?
and they just didn't want to go that way because they did have to deal with other property owners to do that. They wanted their own independent driveway.
Probably
If I
in retrospect, it would have been.
if I recall correctly. Now, yes, if it was a case though, if my recollection is wrong and that was the only access to the property,
I don't know. And I hear you in Mohawk Way. I don't know if it was that lady who was being very difficult about
yes.
allowing them access. Whatever her name was. but,
Well,
you
the
know.
property owner was someone who was prickly and may have pissed off the other people who could give her access, and she didn't get that access.
Yeah, okay.
But the one lot that's remaining on Ocean Ledge Drive is the same thing. There is a big piece of rock is at the point of access. And then this gets into whether is that legal frontage to begin with.
That
Did-
gets into the illusory access.
Correct. And on that Beach Street property, should that access to Beach Street have been considered illusory and not developable? Who
I mean,
knows?
sitting here, I would have said yes. I would say, yeah, you would say there's no goddamn way you could actually build a driveway there. Well, they did, but I mean, it's probably the cost of a good sized house that went into that.
Yeah, I don't know what the permitting process was for that, and how it got done, but
I think that's when I think about this, it's like if people are pushing the envelope of illusory access, that's where we want to draw a firm line.
Call from cell phone not FM.
Yeah, I don't think we have to, well, this is a trick. This is more complicated than
I think what we
it
should
seems.
do. I think
yeah,
what
no, it is. And I mean, there's
we
a
can and get it to Carolyn. Like, I think
Yeah.
we're only going to go so far until we get counsel. So let's get the language as tight as we can. Let's get it to Carolyn. The language we're proposing plus, section 2117, and say, write us an opinion on 2117 and what we're attempting to do with this
Right.
bylaw. I mean, that's what we need. to make
this is one that, depends on whatever town council comes up with, we're going to be an outlier on this because towns don't regulate ledge in this way. We're the only ones who want to do this.
Katie, a suggestion, a really small edit. Let's drop section 21 and just put 17 in. 21, I think, was the predecessor 40A.
Okay.
And so the reference is really, it's the same section, but
Now, the reference is chapter 40, section 21, subsection 17.
Okay.
Okay,
Gotcha. Okay.
all right. I had,
Right.
mine just says 17, but
So
that's
when
all
I
right.
go to Carolyn, I'm going to make 2 requests of her. One is to meet with us to talk about building moratoriums plus her tips on comprehensive redraft and reorganization. That's one. And the second, I'm going to give her a heads up that we're going to need her input sooner rather than later on ledge removal bylaw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
Okay.
I would love, when this goes to the planning board section 5 here, and I'd love this to be done
Yeah.
and not edited by them and not going through a lot of town council review and edits
I agree.
during that process. I'd rather have it
The other ones that we've got, the single lot exemption, it's easy. There's not gonna be any tweaking by town council, and the definitions are really what we choose. Town council isn't gonna, and she may have an opinion, but we're doing it based on the facts on the ground and our research. This is the one that really needs the town council input the most. The other two do not. That and the moratorium.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. If everyone is
are we
comfortable,
allowed to go home?
I think we're allowed to go home. So I was going
We're
to,
working.
or maybe allowed to get off this call and go work on something else. So I'm going to tentatively have people mark the 16th on their calendar as the next date, but that's going to be subject to when Carolyn Murray can give us time. But I'm going to target the 16th with her.
Okay,
Is everybody okay with that? Tom, is there anything on your calendar that
so
week?
far.
Through the 16th,
Yeah,
I have a court hearing at 2 o'clock.
you have a court hearing at 2 o'clock. So the 16th isn't good for you.
No.
Is the 15th better?
I have a court hearing at 9 o'clock and a 4-way at 1 o'clock. And don't ask what a 4-way is.
It's not a fun 4-way.
I've got a 12 to 2 on the 15th, but that's all.
All right, so let's say 2 o'clock and after on the 15th. And the 16th, Tom, yours is in the afternoon. Is that take you out in the morning?
No,
Or you could do the morning?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so 2 o'clock or after on the 15th, people are gonna hold, or 16th in the AM. Okay,
Okay,
thanks, guys. I'll try and get back. I'll try and push that so I can get that locked in early next week, okay? All
okay.
right.
Good
With
night.
that, I'm gonna adjourn
Yeah.
our meeting at 4:10.
Jen, did you have something to say?
I'm saying goodbye.
Oh,
Okay. Goodbye, good riddance, all of the above.
all right.
Have a
All
good
right.
day.
You
Thanks,
too.
guys.
See you all.
All right, thanks so much. All right, bye.